Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න. Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න.
හිසකෙස් ඇතුළතින්ම පෝෂණය කර damaged හිසකෙස් repair කරයි. Dove Intense Repair.
On First at 9 this Monday, the 7th of November 2022. Taking the lead. President Ranil Wickremesinghe calls on UN Secretary General and Chairman of the COP27, the Egyptian President, to hold meetings to assess global food needs. Under control. Army reassures situation at the Kandakudu Rehabilitation Centre has been brought under control. Scandalous. Danishka Gunatilaka's second request for bail gets denied. Sri Lanka cricket suspends cricketer from all forms of the game.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Anuradhi Wickremesinghe. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us on First at 9. I'm Anuradhi Wickremesinghe. Our top story tonight, President Ranil Wickremesinghe requests United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the chairman of the COP27, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, to convene a meeting of agricultural ministers of all nations. The Sri Lankan head of state made the request in order to assess food needs for the next 2 years and also suggested for a report in this regard to be presented as well. President Wickremesinghe is in Egypt attending the United Nations Climate Change Conference and is scheduled to address the summit tomorrow.
Today is the second day of the United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP27, which is being held in the city of Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, attended by more than 100 world leaders. The conference commenced under the chairmanship of Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
Crisis shakes the entire world. Crisis between Russia and Ukraine. My country is not one of the strongest economically. We suffered greatly from the COVID-19 pandemic over 2 years. And today we are suffering once again due to this other crisis, this unnecessary war. I imagine, of course, that the entire world is suffering. Would like to appeal to you. Please, allow me to say this in all respect. This war must stop.
It's time for an historic pact between the developed and the emerging economies. A pact in which developed countries deliver at the commitment made in Paris and make an additional effort to reduce emissions in line with 1.5-degree goal. And a pact in which wealthier countries provide financial and technical assistance, along with support from multilateral development banks and technology companies, to help emerging economies speed their renewable energy transition, as it is also necessary for us all. COP27 must be the place to close the ambition gap, the credibility gap, and the solidarity gap. COP27 must be the place to rebuild trust and re-establish the ambition needed to avoid driving our planet over the climate cliff. In the last few weeks, report after report has painted a clear and bleak picture. Emissions are still growing at record levels. Instead of going down 45% by 2030, as scientists tell us must happen, greenhouse gas emissions are now on course to rise by 10%. And meanwhile, temperatures are on course to rise by as much as 2.8 degrees with the present policies in place by the end of the century. And that means our planet is on course for reaching tipping points and that will make climate chaos irreversible and forever bake in catastrophic temperature rise. We need to move from tipping points to turning points for hope. And that means urgently increasing ambition and trust, especially between North and South.
In the meantime, President Ranil Wickremesinghe today requested UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to convene a meeting of agricultural ministers of all nations to assess food needs for the next 2 years. The Sri Lankan head of state also called for the submission of a report to ensure food security. On the sidelines of COP27, meanwhile, President Wickremesinghe met with several dignitaries. President Ranil Wickremesinghe held discussions with Special Presidential Envoy for Climate and Environment and head of the delegation from the Republic of Korea at COP27, Na Kyong-won. President Wickremesinghe also met with British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. According to the President's media division, President Wickremesinghe extended his warm wishes to the new Prime Minister. President Ranil Wickremesinghe also carried out bilateral discussions with President of the Republic of Slovenia, Borut Pahor. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan head of state met with the US Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, on the sidelines of COP27. In other developments, President Ranil Wickremesinghe is due to address the conference tomorrow.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe called on Minister of Justice, Prisons Affairs and Constitutional Reforms Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa to submit a full report containing the clashes at the Kandakadu Treatment and Rehabilitation Centre yesterday. He also urged the minister to take necessary steps to avert such incidents from recurring within the premises.
A tense situation broke out at the Kandakadu Treatment and Rehabilitation Centre yesterday following clashes between two inmate groups. Commissioner General at the Kandakadu Rehabilitation Centre, Major General Darshana Hettiarachi, said that the clash occurred after a dispute between two inmates escalated. During the clash, some of the inmates had attempted to break into the armory at the rehabilitation centre. Army personnel had fired shots to the air in order to control the situation. Army spokesperson Brigadier Ravi Herath confirmed that 5 individuals sustained injuries in the clashes, including an army personnel. They are currently receiving treatment at the Polonnaruwa General Hospital. Meanwhile, during the tense situation, between 50 and 100 inmates at the Kandakadu Rehabilitation Centre escaped the premises. The army set up barricades along the road to apprehend the inmates that had fled the premises. However, some of them reportedly surrendered to the army personnel. The army stated that they called in the police for reinforcements as well. The army spokesperson added that 299 inmates are currently within the rehabilitation centre. He added that some of the inmates had burnt some of the weapons of the army personnel at the premises.
පුනරුත්ථාන මධ්‍යස්ථානයේ ගොඩනැගිලි කීපයකට හානි කරලා තියෙනවා. මේගොල්ලෝ ගල් ගහලා සාහනිකුත් දේවල් කරලා යම්කිසි අලාභහානියක් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඊට අමතරව පුනරුත්ථාන මධ්‍යස්ථානයේ තියෙන බස් එකක වින්ඩ් ස්ක්‍රීන් එක කඩලා තියෙනවා. මේ කලාකාරී තත්ත්වය කරපු අය ඒ අයගේ නේවාසිකාගාරය තුලට වෙලා ඉන්නවා. එළියට එන්නේ නැතුව අනිකුත් සියලු දෙනා අපි මේ වෙනකොට සේනපුර පුනරුත්ථාපන මධ්‍යස්ථානයට යොමු කරලා තියෙනවා.
In the meantime, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has instructed Minister of Justice Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa to submit a full report regarding the incident. President Wickremesinghe also instructed the minister to take the necessary steps to prevent such incidents from reoccurring.
Three-wheeler drivers were inconvenienced today when they were unable to refill their vehicles with 10 litres of fuel as per the announcement made by the Ministry of Power and Energy. Three-wheeler owners say that despite registering with the website for increased fuel quota, the QR code system has not been updated.
The Ministry of Power and Energy decided to increase the fuel quota granted to three-wheelers from 5 to 10 litres. This was planned to be implemented island-wide in several stages. Under its first phase, the provision of increased additional fuel quota for professional three-wheelers in the Western Province was implemented from today. Three-wheeler drivers were given the opportunity to register their vehicles via the dedicated website launched by the Ministry of Transport and Energy, www.wptaxi.lk, to be eligible for a 10-litre fuel quota. Accordingly, close to 9,000 three-wheelers in the Western Province and over 16,000 three-wheelers were registered at police stations through the website. However, some three-wheel owners say that despite registration, the QR radar system for increasing the fuel quota has not been updated. With this being the case, many three-wheeler drivers said they have been inconvenienced at refilling stations. However, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation stated that this situation is aggravated due to filling station owners not carrying out orders properly, leading to a shortage of fuel in the country. Due to this situation, many fuel queues were seen outside refilling stations today as well.
The National Building Research Organisation issued early landslide warnings for several areas in 7 districts including Badulla, Kandy, Kegol, Kurunegala, Matale, Monaragala and Nuwara. Accordingly, Level 3 warnings were issued for the Gangawata Korale Divisional Secretariat Division and its surrounding areas. Since the rainfall within the past 24 hours has exceeded 150 millilitres, People living in these areas have been urged to stay on alert about the possibility of landslides, slope failures, rock falls and ground subsidence. Residents have been warned to evacuate to safe locations if the need arises. Moreover, the NBRO issued Level 1 landslide early warnings for several areas within 6 districts, including the Badulla, Kandy, Kegol, Kurunegala, Matale and Munaragala districts. Details of a major drug bust carried out on the southern coast by the Sri Lankan Navy coming up right after this break.
Big 3
අයිනෝ පුතා හැබැයි යා ගෙදර නිදියන්නෙම අමෝතු තැනක.
කාලගුණය කොහොමුණත් රයිනෝ නං වහලට සේෆ් තමයි මුළු ගෙදරම. Rhino Cement Roofing Sheets. Then you know Rhino. I know.
Welcome back. Sri Lankan Navy seized a haul of heroin last night from the southern coast of the country. According to Navy spokesperson Captain Indika De Silva, approximately 300 kilograms of heroin was seized off the seas in Hambantota. The haul of drugs was seized as a part of a joint operation carried out by the Sri Lankan Navy, Police Special Task Force and Police Narcotic Bureau. The Navy spokesperson said that 10 suspects were arrested, while 2 fishing boats and a dinghy were also taken into custody. Leader of the opposition Sajid Premadasa said today that his party would not by any means join what he termed as this bankrupt government. He said that this government has played by the books of the Rajapaksas that was chased away by the people.
ජනතාව එළවපු රාජපක්ෂලා කියන ආකාරයට දුන්න කැබිනට් ඇමතිකම් තවත් ඇමතිකම් කීපයක් පත් කරන්නට යනවා සමගි ජන බලවේගයෙන් සමගි ජන සන්ධානයෙන් කිසිම කෙනෙක් මේ බංකොලොත් ආණ්ඩුවට එකතු වෙන්නේ නැtei කියන එක මම කියන්න කැමතියි මේ තියෙන විකෘති ආණ්ඩුව අපි අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම වෙනස් කරනවා
ගෝල් ෆේස් සටන ඒ රිද්මෙන් දැන් අකණ්ඩව ගෙනියන්න බෑ අපි පියවරක් පසුපසට එන්න ඕන දැන් දෙවෙනිදා උද්ඝෝෂණයක් තිබ්බනේ උද්ඝෝෂණේ තියෙනකන් කට්ටිය අපෙන් ප්‍රශ්න ඇහුවා. සහෝදරයා යන්නේ නැද්ද? අපි කිව්වා සහෝදරයා ටිකක් මෙහෙමයි ඒකේ තත්ත්වේ. ඊළඟ තව කෝල් එකක් එනවා. ගියොත් හොඳයි නේද?
China's exports and imports unexpectedly contracted in October, the first simultaneous slump since May 2020, as a perfect storm of COVID curbs at home and global recession risks dented demand and further darkened the outlook for a struggling economy. The bleak data highlights a challenge for policymakers in China as they press on with pandemic prevention measures and try to navigate broad pressure from surging inflation, sweeping increases in worldwide interest rates, and a global slowdown. Outbound shipments in October shrank 0.3% from a year earlier, a sharp turnaround from a 5.7% gain in September, official data showed on Monday, and well below analyst expectations for a 4.3% increase. It was the worst performance since May 2020. The data suggests demands remain frail overall, and analysts warn of further gloom for exporters over the coming quarters, heaping more pressure on the country's manufacturing sector and the world's second biggest economy grappling with persistent COVID-19 curbs and protracted property weaknesses. The yuan, meanwhile, eased 0.4% from a more than 1 week high against the dollar reached in the previous session. And as the weak trade data and Beijing's vow to continue with its strict zero-COVID strategy hurt sentiment. Oil prices were stable, hovering close to $100 a barrel as support from a weaker dollar and recovering Chinese crude imports met renewed demands concerned linked to China's stringent COVID-19 containment approach. Brent crude futures rose by 6 cents or 0.06% to $98.63 a barrel. A U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $92.60 a barrel, down 1 cent or 0.01%. Brent and WTI rose last week, climbing 2.9% and 5.4% respectively on speculation of a possible end to COVID-19 lockdowns despite the lack of any announced changes. But prices pared losses in early European trading following stronger risk sentiment, news of recovering Chinese crude imports, and the dollar weakened against other currencies. The US dollar sank against the euro today, and sterling was supported by a risk on sentiment and a rally in European stock markets. Now, Sri Lankan cricketer Danushka Gunatilaka, who was arrested in Australia over allegations of sexual assault, was denied bail when he produced before the Downing Centre District Court today. However, his attorney said that they will take prompt measures to submit a bail application with the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka Cricket announced today that they have decided to suspend Danushka Gunatilaka from all forms of cricket with immediate effect.
Sri Lankan batsman Danushka Gunatilaka, who travelled to Australia for the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, was arrested yesterday following an incident of an alleged sexual assault. A 29-year-old woman accused Gunatilaka, whom she met via a dating app and maintained contact for some time, of attempting to sexually assault her when they met at her residence after spending time at a bar. Gunatilaka, who was arrested from the Sydney hotel in which the team was accommodated, was charged with 4 counts of sexual intercourse without consent. The cricketer was also denied bail when he was presented before court in Sydney yesterday. Danushka Gunatilaka, who was held in detention, was presented before the Downing Centre District Court today through video link. When the case was taken up before Judge Robert William, appearing before Danushka Gunatilaka, attorney Ananda Amaranath submitted a request for bail. However, after considering the fact that the individual in question is a foreigner and with new tighter laws recently being passed regarding sexual assault, the judge denied the request for bail. Australian media reported that the cricketer is currently detained at the Silverwater prison.
Well, the application was refused, but certainly we are considering an application to the Supreme Court.
To appeal the decision?
Yeah, that's correct. And that'll be done as soon as possible.
And your client, how do you think he'll cope with this? You've spoken to him about...
He'll be disappointed, clearly. We put our position to the court. There was no unacceptable risk, but the court disagreed, so we have to accept the decision.
In the meantime, the Executive Committee of Sri Lanka Cricket decided to suspend Danushka Gunatilaka from all forms of cricket with immediate effect. They added that they will not consider him for any selections. Sri Lanka Cricket went on to say that they will take necessary steps to promptly carry out an inquiry into the allegation, and upon conclusion of the court case in Australia, steps will be taken to penalise the player if found guilty.
It's a very bad thing to see that national player approved by the ministry and representing the country resorting to this type of unnecessary bad activities, and then ultimately the whole country suffers because of that. Our minister has given me directive to take immediate action against this player, and then also to do investigations against the cricket board and Sri Lanka Cricket, and to take remedial measures to prevent this type of things happening in the future. The public money should never be spent on individuals who has gone into other activities other than the task given to them by the Sri Lankan public. A lot of allegations and a lot of complaints are coming now. They were all up to party from the time that they got down in Australia. Therefore, this is a very, very bad thing. Our cricket board chairman, Shammi Silva, is also taking this very serious. And I hope that with the ministry and our minister's intervention and the foreign ministry's intervention, we should be able to resolve the matter with least damages for the relationship between Australia and Sri Lanka.
And that's all the news we have for you tonight. Join us again tomorrow at the same time. Up next, we have Dhanadu with Anavasam with World News Tonight. Thank you and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.